it's important to take our work very, very seriously, but it's also important not to take ourselves too seriously. There's a lot of fun in the workplace. There's a lot of humor in the workplace. If you step back a little bit, you'll see a lot of that fun and humor yourself. It's a business book, but it's an unserious business book. The purpose of this book was to actually get people to, look at themselves a little unseriously, to pull their own feet, to have a smile on their face as they look at all the things happening in our offices. So, if you look at all these classifications, Mohua, from the grabber to the picky eater to the health fanatic to the civilized sacrificer, the carry bag, you see how you can actually classify people not through other psychological or personality traits, but through how they eat cookies in office. Now that's one of the stories in the Office Secrets. Gossip is about office news, what happens in the offices, and not everything that happens in the office is published on a notice board or on a email. So gossip is a very, very good way of making sure that the entire office is networked with what's really happening in the office. Because there are many things that can be said in writing on notices and official emails, but the rest of it is actually, corridor conversations which constitute gossip.
This podcast is in association with the 10th edition of the Bangalore Business Literature Festival 2024. It is India's most attended and longest running business literature festival. The BizLit Fest celebrates and fosters the culture of reading, writing, and publishing business literature. Join us as we bring you heart-to-heart conversations with our esteemed authors and business leaders to inspire you with their insights and also maybe write your own book. Hi, in today's episode, we have with us a very special guest, Harish Bhat, the former brand custodian at Tata Sons, a prolific writer and the author of the insightful and thought-provoking book, Office Secrets. So thank you, Harish, for joining us. But before we get down to asking you the first questions, let me just tell my listeners a little about you. Harish has been a distinguished leader in the Tata Group for 36 years, holding key roles such as brand custodian at Tata Sons and CEO of Tata Global Beverages. Currently serving as an advisor at Tata Sons, he is also on the boards of Trent Infinity Retail and Tata Starbucks. A graduate from BITS Pilani and IIM Ahmedabad, Harish has nurtured iconic Tata brands like Tanishq and Tata Tea, recognized by Forbes as a top 10 global CMO. He has authored 7 books. We are not talking 1 book, 2 books. He has authored 7 books, including 3 national bestsellers, and is a noted columnist for major business newspapers. And I am really nervous now, Harish, with such a wonderful biodata. So let's not make it very tough for me. I might just get caught, not knowing enough. Welcome to the Mohua show.
Mohua, thank you very much for welcoming me to the show. I'm feeling equally nervous being on a podcast with you for the first time, but will do my best.
What inspired you to write Office Secrets? Was there a particular moment or experience that sparked off the idea?
So, Mohua, this is the cover of Office Secrets, incidentally. This is the Hindi version of the book, not the English one. It is in English and in Hindi. What inspired me to write this book, Mohua, is that, we take ourselves too seriously at work. Our workplaces are all grim and serious and people are all the time thinking of strategy and financial numbers and so forth. All that is very, very important. Okay. All that is very, very important in the world of business. But it's important to take our work very, very seriously. But it's also important not to take ourselves too seriously. There's a lot of fun in the workplace. There's a lot of humor in the workplace. If you step back a little bit, you'll see a lot of that fun and humor yourself. And the purpose of this book, it's a business book, but it's an unserious business book. The purpose of this book was to actually get people to, look at themselves a little unseriously, to pull their own feet, to have a smile on their face as they look at all the things happening in our offices. Lots of things happen in our offices. Some are absurd, some are funny, some are serious. So the book brings all those together and talks about office secrets of the kind, what do you eat in office, what do you drink in office, how do you do your offsites, how do you make friends in office, what's the role of gossip in office. It talks about all these kind of secrets, not really the secrets you associate with strategy and financial numbers. So that's why I decided to write this book.
How interesting is that? So now when you're talking about eating, let's just talk a little bit about cookies. So in your book, there are some very interesting secrets. And I mean, I have a huge weakness for cookies. I try very hard to give up my cookie and my coffee, but I can't. So can you please tell us a little more about what are the secrets of how people eat cookies in the office?
Yeah. So, Mohua, I love cookies as much as you do. And, if you're in a meeting in your office and look at the time when a plate of cookies comes in, the guy comes with a plate of cookies and puts them on the table or multiple plates. My view is that corporates should never underestimate the power of that move. Let me tell you what happens. I've been observing this very closely over many, many years of my corporate career. What happens is all managers tend to uniformly greet the arrival of the cookie platter, but different managers respond differently. And I have therefore, arrived at a classification of managers based on how they respond to cookies. So first you have, the grabber. The grabber is a person who identifies their favorite cookie immediately. Their favorite cookie could be the cashew cookie, or the favorite cookie could be, the Mari biscuits, or whatever they are. He identifies his favorite cookie immediately, spares no thought for his compatriots, grabs that cookie and eats it. He's a believer in Ayn Rand's philosophy that selfishness is the ultimate virtue. Okay, that's the first classification. The second guy or the second girl is the vacillator. Now, this person finds it very difficult to choose a cookie. Am I going to choose the cashew nut cookie? Am I going to choose the chocolate chip cookie? Am I going to choose the simple Parle G biscuit? They love them all, but they have the civilized decency to know I can only pick up one or two. So they turn over a couple of cookies, and a lot of their time then goes into the selection of the cookie rather than what's happening in the meeting. So that's the second kind of person who I call the vacillator. And I've narrated the story in this book. The third is the health fanatic mover. Here is a person who is completely obsessed with not putting on those additional calories, wants to lose weight. Even if he is absolutely famished, he will eventually only break off a tiny piece of the cookie and eat it and chew on it meditatively. Then he gets greedy enough and picks up one more piece and one more, and finally he decides it's not worth leaving the rest of it behind. Let me. So he's completely in a zero sum calorie consumption game throughout the cookie platter being in front of him. We should not forget the picky eater. The picky eater is a fourth classification, Mohua, which again I have written in Office Secrets about. Now, the picky eater is of the view that he need not eat the whole cookie. He can pick out only the cashews from the cashew nut cookie, or he can, do you remember those cookies with the pineapple cream in the center and with sugar on top of them and all that. I've even known people, including me, sometimes to just lick out the cream and say, okay, the rest of this cookie is of no use. We will only have, and here is a person who will pick and choose his way through life. That's what this person stands for. Pick and choose his way through life. And then you have the civilized sacrificer. The civilized sacrificer will say, oh my God, there are only two cookies left on this plate now. Let me not pick up one because someone else may want it in the meeting. So he will sacrifice his cookie needs and wait endlessly until another colleague picks him up. So that's a nice guy to have around, the civilized sacrificer. And finally, Mohua, you also have a classification of the carry bag. Now, the carry bag is an interesting classification. You do all these meetings and conferences at hotels and at resorts and all that, and cookies are served on the table. So at the end of the meeting, this guy, thinks my organization has anyway funded this. Why leave these cookies behind? Let me pack them up and take them. So that's the carry bag who carries the cookies away. So, and here is a person who has a maximizing approach to life, saying that, I will claim every last penny which I'm due, either fully or marginally. Wonderful, wonderful negotiator to have on your side. So, if you look at all these classifications, Muhua, from the grabber to the picky eater to the health fanatic to the civilized sacrificer, the carry bag, you see how you can actually classify people not through other psychological or personality traits, but through how they eat cookies in office. Now that's one of the stories in the Office Secrets. There are other classifications, of course. I've just brought a few classifications ahead to you, but I'm sure people who are listening to this show will relate to one or the other kind of cookie eater. Would you agree with me? And this is not a serious subject.
I
It's not a serious subject, but it's an important subject in our offices.
I had to try very hard to not have tears rolling down my eyes because I just traveled with you, to my advertising days when that plate would come and everybody would be relieved, with all the uh, graphs and the data. And absolutely, I relate to each of those characters, Harish. So, a very unusual chapter in your book speaks about the secrets that managers can learn from the legendary fictional detective Hercule Poirot. Have I got the pronunciation right? Hercule Poirot,
I'm,
Agatha Christie's character. Okay, and what are those secrets?
so I'm not really sure about the pronunciation. I don't know too much French myself. He's a Belgian, actually. Hercule Poirot is perhaps the most famous of detectives, from Agatha Christie's murder
Yes.
mysteries. Um, and, Hercule Poirot turned 100 in the year 2020. And that's when I thought of writing this story. Now, Hercule Poirot is a very, very unique detective. He has an egg-shaped hell, lots of gray cells. He's proud of absolute order in everything that he does. He solves every murder mystery that he is presented with the powers of his great mind, and his novels have become bestsellers. But what can managers learn from Hercule Poirot? Why should they learn only from other managers and leaders? Why can't they learn from a detective? Now, here are three or four things they can learn, and there's much more written in Office Secrets as well. First, Hercule Poirot is a person who observes the scene of the crime very carefully. He will see, is there a stain on the carpet? Is it something fallen down? Is a book that is wrongly stacked? Is there a man who is too eager to talk to me? He observes all these things and then draws the threads towards understanding who has actually committed the crime. Now, this is equally true for managers. If we observe our teams and our workplaces very carefully, for instance, if you notice that a team member has suddenly fallen silent, who used to speak a lot before, or a colleague appears unduly harried, these are deviations from the normal order, and they actually raise question marks in your mind. It will help us to spot and show empathy to colleagues who are probably going through a tough time, which is why they've fallen silent. It will help us to spot and curb wastages. Observing consumers carefully may actually give you a wonderful insight for the next brand idea or the next advertising idea or the next product idea. So the power of observation is one thing. Power of silent observation is one thing that you can learn from Hercule Poirot, and which I have pointed out in Office Secrets. The second thing is, great detectives like Hercule Poirot, Mohua, are also very good at picking out red herrings. Red herrings which can put you on the wrong path, which initially appear quite seductive, but they're actually the wrong clues. Hercule Poirot was excellent at picking out red herrings. Now, in our own organizations, you'll agree with me, there is no dearth of red herrings. There are red herrings everywhere. So, first and foremost, there is a deluge of data which reaches us these days. Everyone is doing data analytics. Everyone is getting mountains of data from the internet, from various sources, from online sources, and so forth. Now, you can end up misinterpreting such data and reaching wrong conclusions. That's a red herring. And if you're very good at picking out those red herrings, then you will go towards the essential information that really matters. And my belief is that detective novels like Hercule Poirot's can provide you very good clues on how to identify red herrings. The third thing, Mova, and I'll end with this, there are many, many other areas we can learn from Hercule Poirot also. But the third thing is really Hercule Poirot and great detectives like him ask the right questions. It's because they ask the right questions, which may appear innocuous or stupid, but they are the right questions and they elicit the information which helps them solve the jigsaw puzzle or the murder mystery. Now, that's true of managers too. If you sit in a review, if you're understanding whether something has worked or not worked, let's say we are understanding whether an advertisement has worked or not, or we are understanding if a new product that is launched has worked or not. How do we ask the right questions? How do we ask the right questions of consumers? How do we ask the right questions of salespeople? How do we ask the right questions of ourselves? And those questions will have to help us fill the gaps rather than, be some glamorous kind of questions merely led by colorful PowerPoint slides in front of us. So these are two or three of the things, and the last thing I'd like to say, Moa, is Hercule Poirot is a person, he doesn't rush from place to place. He sits in his chair, he has his cup of tea, or he has his syrup, which is his favorite liqueur, and then he thinks about what has happened. He's a man who believes that action and reflection should actually, go hand in hand with each other. They should alternate with each other. He gives himself enough time for reflection. And it is through the process of reflection that he decides, this guy must be the person who has committed the murder or the crime. Similarly, I think as managers, we are very, very addicted to action. We want to be in the midst of action all the time. How often do we spend reflecting on what has happened? And it is reflection. Reflection is not easy. Reflection can be lonely and challenging to do. But as Poirot will tell you, our gray cells need all the peace that they can get for you to come to the right conclusion on the solutions to problems that we face in offices. So I really think, therefore, that Hercule Poirot is a wonderful, wonderful role model for managers who want to know how to best do problem solving. He's also my favorite detective. I can just lie back with a glass of wine and read Hercule Poirot day in and day out on the beach or even within my home. And I talk about him a lot in Office Secrets.
Wonderful. So, one of your principles is just excel, don't impress, which is really tough because most people want to express, or Jedi as you call it. How can employees adopt this mindset without feeling pressured to constantly prove themselves? Because the truth is that they do need to prove themselves to really go up the ladder. Don't you agree with me on that?
Yes, Mohua, but what I would say on this is, I would say that it's good work that you do that eventually wins you admiration and respect. Okay, a little bit of grandstanding sometimes helps, but it does not help in the long term. If you focus on content, if you focus on the right content, rather than spending huge amounts of time in creating slick PowerPoint slides, I think that's a better method to actually impress the powers that be in our offices. If you just say the two or three lines that really matter very powerfully, that's more likely to produce results. It'll also conserve your energy rather than trying to impress people with a huge amount of, fluff and, what should I say, graphics and everything else. Similarly, Moa, lots of us, I like hearing the sound of my own voice. I must confess that. In Office Secrets, I talk a lot about that. But in a meeting, if you speak only when you need to, if you speak only when you have an insightful or good point to make, my sense is senior managers take note of that much more than a person who just keeps talking away and away and away. So don't speak at meetings to impress others. That's tiresome. Speak only when you have something new to say, a fresh perspective to add, and spend the rest of the time listening because you also get a lot of inputs that way. If you're just trying to impress others, you don't listen. And when you don't listen, you don't get fresh ideas into your mind. Uh, the third thing, Moa, really is, a lot of people tend to also stay late to impress others. For instance, I've known of people who stay late and say, until my boss is in office, I'll be here, but really speaking, it's working smart that matters, not staying late and working beyond hours. Just staying late in the office is not an indicator of how much good work that you're doing. In addition, I would say you also end up eating all assorted late evening snacks and that's going to further impact your waistline as well. So I think working smart during the day is what really matters. That's why I say be a Jedi. Just excel, don't impress. And I have found that the people who do that eventually win in corporate life in the long term. People who are just out there to impress, you can impress others for a day, for a week, for a month, but you can't impress people all the time if you're short on content.
Agree with you fully. You mentioned the concept of mobile distance axioms, how our proximity to our phone affects our productivity. And I so agree with you because I think our phone increasingly is becoming really our best friends. And, what strategies do you recommend for managing this in a very digital first world where most people are really attached to the hip with their phone,
Yeah,
including
so
me?
Mohua, I think no, I think this is a universal human addiction. It impacts me, it impacts you, it impacts everyone. But I have seen what people do. I've seen what people do to effectively manage this. The first thing, Mohua, that they do is they actually keep their mobile phones far away. I've seen people come into a meeting, keep the mobile phone far away, and then focus on the rest of the content of the meeting, so that the mobile phone does not distract you. Uh, you know. I write. I'm a writer. When I write, I make sure that the mobile phone is right at the opposite corner of the room because you need focus when you write. I'm sure you need focus when you do such a brilliant podcast. I'm sure you need focus when you do a podcast. And sometimes the mobile phone can be a distraction, and keeping it away would be a very, very good thing to do. The second thing that I see people do, Mova, is really what shall I say? They take a couple of hours every day, which is space without the mobile. For instance, I go for a walk in the evening at Krishnarao Park, which is just next to my house. Very often, I just leave my mobile phone behind because I want that time to think. I want that time to think about what I'm going to write next, what I'm going to do next, and the mobile phone would be a huge distraction. If So, give yourself some time which is digital free every day, rather than getting sucked into the whirlpool of digital activity all the time. That's the second simple thing that I would say. Um, the third thing that I would say, Mova, is there are times when the mobile phone is naturally not with you. When I'm on a flight, for instance, the mobile is off. In India, at least for domestic flights, we don't have mobile connectivity, and those are very, very good times for me to reflect on everything else that is happening without getting sucked in by the mobile phone. um, I make sure that when go to sleep, I keep the mobile phone far, far away so that, I don't get tempted to wake up in the middle of the night and see what's happening in the rest of the world. There's really no need to do. So these are some simple things that others do, but I'm sure there are other people who have worked out even better strategies.
Thank you so much. This was so helpful because I think so many of our listeners do struggle with this. And I am myself a columnist and a writer, and I do struggle with the fact that, I'm trying to start my other book and I have been so stuck, with the phone. So this was really, really great, Harish. So your book talks about the importance of daydreaming or drifting to solve problems. Why do you think this is so effective? And how can people incorporate this in their daily routine?
This is so important, Moa. In Office Secrets, I speak about daydreaming. We have been brought up in our schools, particularly in our schools, maybe also in our homes, with the notion that daydreaming is a waste of time. Teachers, if I get caught looking out of the window in a classroom and gazing into the skies, the teacher will throw a chalk at me and say, don't daydream. Listen to what's happening in the classroom. Scientists have actually figured out that we spend as much as 45% of our time daydreaming. But they've also figured out, Mova, that it helps us in many, many ways. Daydreaming is a good thing to do if done in moderation. It's not a wasteful thing. One of the reasons that daydreaming is good is it helps you to beat the blues. Sometimes you're very stressed out, and stress ends up exhausting us. Now, daydreaming is an excellent method of getting away from stress induced anxiety. There's a Harvard University health blog authored by a psychiatrist called Srini Pillai, who points out that if you let your mind wander away into nice things, far away from perceived threats, it can lift you out of any negative spirals that you've got into during the day. And then when you come back into your current reality, you can focus in your work because you've come back, your mind is now feeling far more relaxed and positive. So daydreaming is a very good way if you're experiencing anxiety, if a project is not going well, if a meeting has been particularly difficult. A little daydreaming helps you to get back into positive territory because it helps your mind wander into all the nice places and the nice things that you do. The second thing, Mova, about daydreaming is, and I've spent a lot of time in Office Secrets talking about this, it helps you build good relationships because sometimes we often live and work far away from our loved ones, but when daydreaming about people who are special and important to you, about colleagues and office moments which have been very positive, it helps keep those relationships alive in our minds, and even though those people may not be with you at that point in time. But a third very important reason for daydreaming more is that daydreaming helps us solve challenging problems. Haven't we all experienced the time when our mind feels saturated? We are not able to get to a solution for a problem. We are so heavily immersed in the problem that our mind stops working for a while. Whether you call it a mental block or a writer's block or whatever, a manager's block or whatever it is. Most of us face this mental block from time to time, and then when we are at that mental block place, more of linear thinking will not help, even though it's well intentioned. On the other hand, a wandering mind definitely helps. Because if all those thoughts and problems are in your mind, all those threads are hovering over in your mind, and suddenly you let your mind relax and wander into the daydreaming space, scientists have shown that it can sometimes result in a eureka moment where all those threads combine together in your mind in a very relaxed frame, and you suddenly find the solution that you've been seeking for. No wonder Archimedes had his eureka moment in a bathtub. For
Yes.
many people, the eureka moment can come when you're having a shower, or it can come when you're going out for a walk. So, engaging in relaxed daydreaming when you're in the midst of trying to solve an intractable problem is a good way. It may actually result in the solution coming into your minds. And of course, not to mention that daydreaming is sheer pleasure. Okay, daydreaming is a very, very pleasurable activity. It provides us a soft refuge in which we can, you know, immerse ourselves. It's amongst the most pleasurable activities like a coffee break. It gives us a unique sense of happiness. It helps us to pause the world. It helps us to bring up our finest memories. And good thing, Mohua, is that each of us can daydream by ourselves. There's no dependency here on anyone else. You can daydream when you want to. So there are so many positive aspects to daydreaming. I would actually encourage people to daydream every single day for a little bit of time. It has all these positive impacts that I've written about in Office Secrets.
You make a very strong case, for banning PowerPoint presentations, and this will like really shake up the entire management system. Why do you say this?
So, Mohua, I do believe that PowerPoint presentations are sometimes, not always, I do believe that they're a waste of time. And, you know, so much time goes into preparing slides, beautifying slides, as though we are conducting a marriage with PowerPoint slides. So much time goes into all that. But there was a study published in the Harvard Business Review which said that presentations really work well only if a meeting is about communicating something. If a meeting is about discussing something, if you want to communicate something to an audience, if you want to entertain an audience, use a PowerPoint slide for all that you wish to. But even there, keep it brief. But if you are calling a meeting to develop an idea, to flesh out an idea, to brainstorm something, to get inputs, to build personal relationships with the participants, then the approach which works best is conversation rather than PowerPoint presentations. Which is why in my book, Office Secrets, I have called it COP, Conversations Over Presentations. And I've said if you want to be a good cop, then you should actually prioritize conversations over presentations. If you ban PowerPoint presentations altogether, just ask people when they come into a meeting, put down your thoughts in 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs and bring the note with you. I think people will be happier doing it, and it will
Yeah.
also give you good inputs for discussion in the meeting. uh, it'll ensure that people are not spending effort on useless things like which background should I use for my PowerPoint slide, or what visual should I put in. The second thing, Mova, is, and therefore I would say, unless your meeting is just about communication, banning PowerPoint may be the best thing to do in an office. The second thing is, even if you were to use PowerPoint, tell people to put down whatever they have to within 4 5 slides. There is no topic on this world which takes more than 4 or 5 slides to explain. The rest of it is merely fluff. There is a lot of, what should I say, preface done, and there's a lot of dramatics done before you get to those final 3 or 4 slides which actually say what you want to say. So why don't we just have those final 3 or 4 slides? Um, Otherwise you're just held up in a huge amount of time, and you know 5 is a good number to have. Your 5 fingers on your hand, and uh, the 5 slides should be carefully crafted to provoke conversation. Do you know, while writing out this chapter for Office Secrets, I actually discovered that there's an organization in Switzerland called the Anti-PowerPoint Party. It's
Oh,
a
wow.
party of anti-PowerPointers who actually say that we should decrease the use of PowerPoint and other presentation software because they think that fancy presentations cause significant economic damage by just wasting people's time. They actually advocate the use of flip charts. Those white flip charts that we have in meeting rooms. They just say that flip charts are an amazing alternative to presentations because you just put a point there, you then co-create a narrative with the rest of the participants in the room. That's a far more engaging process than a one-sided PowerPoint presentation. And participants can engage with the presenter very easily. There is no energy dissipated on wasteful high-tech razzmatazz, and the message gets through very, very well in while you use a flip chart. So for all these reasons, Mohua, even if I do use a PowerPoint these days, I keep it very brief and just to tell a story. Um, so if you're telling a story, if you're entertaining people, of course use a PowerPoint. But if you're discussing something valuable, I think a note is much, much more effective in a meeting itself. So I know that a lot of you guys who are listening to the show and using PowerPoints in your offices, you may be thinking, what the hell is Harish Bhat talking about? But I must tell you this, that banning the use of PowerPoint and just using simple notes to power your meetings is probably a very, very good idea in most meetings that you have. Try it and you'll see how much more productive your meeting becomes. That's what I say in the Office Secrets, Mohua. And that's a secret which has actually helped me a lot in the meetings that I have conducted.
I completely agree with you on this because I think it's one of the best ways to cut out on wastage of time too. People
Yeah.
spend hours, trying to beautify the entire PowerPoint presentation, and then there are days of work that's missed out on doing this. So completely in agreement with you on this. So in your book, you also talk about the power of generosity in Office Secrets. So can you narrate, a story to us about the power of generosity?
Of course, Mohua, I can. Let me give you a story, which is a real life story that I have experienced. Like you said at the beginning of the show, I have now published 7 books, including The Office Secrets. 3 of them have been national bestsellers. But there was a time in 2011-12 when I had no clue how to publish a book, but I wanted to write one. And I was a manager in Titan in those days. You know Titan, which is the watch and jewelry company headquartered in our own town of Bangalore. I used to be a manager in Titan in those days, and I was wondering how to go about this. And then I wrote an email. I wrote an email to a gentleman called R. Gopalakrishnan, who had already published a few books by then. He was an executive director of Tata Sons, which is the highest board of the Tata Group. And when I wrote an email, I was not even sure I would get a response from him because he's a busy director sitting on the boards of several companies. But in 2 days flat, I got a response from him. I wrote an email to him saying, "Sir, can I meet you? I have an idea for a book. I'd like to write my first book, and can I request your inputs and help?" And in 2 days, I received an email from him saying, "Harish, come to Bombay House, which is where the headquarters of the Tata Group, where his office was. Come and meet me." So I went to Bombay House. I thought he would give me 15-20 minutes to discuss my book. I went to his office, a little nervous, sat there. He gave me a full hour to discuss the book, how the book should be structured, what stories should go into the book, what kind of books do people read and what kind of books do they not read. And I came out of that office feeling very, very gratified that here is one of the senior most people in the Tata Group who has given me a full hour to guide me in the writing. And then I began writing that. That was my first book called Tata Law. And part of that book I wrote sitting in the library of the Tata Management Training Center in Pune. When I was midway through writing that book, about 2 or 3 months after I had started, Mr. Gopalakrishnan happened to visit the Tata Management Training Center. And over a weekend, he again spent a couple of hours with me understanding how my book was progressing, helping me to unknot some of the difficult areas that I was getting into while doing the writing. And that was, of course, very, very generous of him, again, to provide me a couple of hours. And finally, when I requested him to write a foreword to the book, and this was my first book, okay, I had no clue whether it would do well, not do well, it would be rejected by the publishers, accepted by the publishers, but he happily wrote a foreword to that book also, and an excellent foreword. Now that Mahua is an act of generosity, giving time to a junior manager of the group who is desirous of writing his first book, guiding him in the writing of the book, midway through helping him with the unknotting problems in the writing of the book, finally providing a forward. Because that's an act of generosity which takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I'm only delighted to say that 12 years later, this year, my latest book, I have co-authored with Mr. Gopal,
Oh,
who
how
had then,
amazing.
who had at that stage
Congratulations.
the thanks, Mohua. Thank you very much.
Yeah, amazing.
But this is an act of generosity, and this is a real life story of generosity. And I've come across many, many such stories in my working career with the Tata Group. Because generosity is not about money, Mohua. Generosity is about giving time. It's about giving your attention. It's about sharing your knowledge without holding back. And that is so, so important. You can be you can be, what should I say, a very intelligent guy or girl. You can be, you know, very successful in a financial way or in a purely business way. But unless you're generous to the people whom you work with, you're never really going to have their love and affection. And generosity is very important. Also, because Mohua, generosity is not just about, it is about giving to the other person, but it's also very fulfilling for yourself because you feel that you have helped someone who is in need of help. And what can be more fulfilling than that?
Amazing. Absolutely. Absolutely agree with you. Let's now talk a little bit about workplace gossip, which is a topic that you touch upon. How can employees and leaders deal with gossip in a way that maintains a positive and productive work environment? And we all know that in the corridors where people are having their chai or they're going to stop by to have that glass of water, they will share a little tidbit about someone. And
Yes.
tell me a little bit about that. And maybe you
So
can read
Mohua,
out one of your passages from your book, Office Secrets.
yeah, so I will read out the passage a little later, but I would say, Mohua, that not all gossip is bad. Gossip is about office news, what happens in the offices, and not everything that happens in the office is published on a notice board or on a email. So gossip is a very, very good way of making sure that the entire office is networked with what's really happening in the office. Because there are many things that can be said in writing on notices and official emails, but the rest of it is actually, corridor conversations which constitute gossip. Gossip is informal communication, Mohua. All communication in offices doesn't have to be formal communication in the conference. Informal communication has the very, very nice effect of forming friendships. Informal communication has the very, very nice effect of getting teams to get bonded together much, much more closely. And a lot of that happens because, the news that is shared is not just official news, it's also grapevine that is shared within the organization. I think grapevine results in what they call is an efficient market because everyone knows everything when there is grapevine in an office. And an efficient market is often very, very useful in any circumstance. Um, so if it is constructive gossip, Mahua, there is constructive gossip and there is destructive gossip. Okay, destructive gossip I would not engage in at all because destructive gossip is about uh, talking about someone else's character or reputation. One would never do that because that can result in many, many negative spirals and negative effects. But constructive gossip can be, about where is this person heading next? What's the next job for this person? Maybe a few people have been shortlisted for that role, and there is speculation in the office about what the shortlist is. That I would think is a little more of a constructive gossip. Constructive gossip is about, the food that we ate last night or what's going to be for dinner tonight on the conference menu now, and who's actually selected that dinner menu for us. That's constructive gossip. So I would say there are kinds of gossip which are very, very good for networking, very, very good for friendships, for team bonding, and we should never therefore ban gossip in offices. I mean, there's no way you can ban it also
You
because
can't.
people will gossip what they want to gossip.
Let's talk a little bit about praising others. That creates a very positive feedback loop. So, can you share an example from your own career where sincere praise has made a very significant impact with you as a person?
Yes, of course, Mova. So, let me go back to my career in Tata Tea. And let me go back to my career in Tata Tea. And I was a um, junior manager handling a couple of our brands, Chakra Gold Tea, Gemini Tea, which are regional brands. I used to be based in a marketing office at Yeshwantpur in Bangalore. And a couple of years when we did exceptionally well with our with our brands. With this, we had breakthroughs. We were a small company at that time, Tata Tea, fighting the might of Unilever, which was a giant in the tea and coffee marketplace. And a couple of years, we made huge breakthroughs in Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu states with brands like Chakra Gold Tea, Gemini Tea, Agni Tea, and so forth. And in those couple of years, where we exceeded our sales targets by far, I remember receiving letters of appreciation and praise from the managing director of the company, Mr. R.K. Krishnan. And those letters actually said, I'm sending you this letter to appreciate the work you've done on brands like Gemini Tea and Chakra Gold Tea, for the distribution networks that you've been able to build, and for the brand related work that you've been able to do. So the letter actually was genuine in that it also carried elements of what you had actually done rather than just saying good job and well done. And it came directly from the managing director of the company. And it was not only to me, it was also to others who had exceptional achievements in that year. And I remember what a morale booster that letter was for. And I've still kept it very carefully in my files. Um, so that to me is the impact of genuine praise. When you receive genuine praise, you feel really good about it because you know the other person has understood what you have achieved and is genuinely appreciating you for that. It's also something that doesn't come your way all the time. It only comes when you do something exceptional and good, and therefore you value it even more. So I do believe, Mohua, that in India, sometimes we are reticent with praise. We are very quick to pull up the other person. Why has this not been done? When will that happen? Why are you late with this? But we are not as forthcoming with our praise for things which are done very well. But I have seen throughout my career, and in the Office Secrets, I discuss this quite a bit, that, giving a person genuine praise can be probably the best motivator that you can provide.
I completely agree with you on this. Absolutely. So, what is the one office secret from your book that you think everybody should start practicing immediately to see a positive change in their work life?
Yeah. So, Mohua, I think the one office secret that I would recommend to everyone, of course, a very, very simple office secret that I mentioned right in the beginning was don't use PowerPoint. Think through your meetings rather than using PowerPoint. But I want to go to a deeper office secret. I think it's important, Mohua, for us to be kind to the people that we work with. Kindness should be on our to do list because kindness makes us happier. Kindness elevates the amount of dopamine in our brains. You have to be kind to yourself first and foremost. You have to be kind to yourself because unless you're kind to yourself, you cannot be kind to others. You know, take a walk outdoors each evening to feel the spring on your steps, have a good lunch break, have a nice meal, set yourself a firm deadline for when to complete your work each day. There are many ways of being kind to yourself. Be kind to others as well. You don't have to make a call to others only when you have something to ask for or only when there's a transaction. Sometimes, if a person is going through a tough patch, just make a call to that person to ask how they are and how they're doing. It would matter so much to that person to receive such a call from you. And all of us go through those tough times. So, receiving a human call from our boss or our colleague makes us valued as human beings. And you cannot estimate the huge impact that genuine empathy would have on that person's life. It's very, very important to meet your work commitments. So sometimes a kind thing that you can do is only commit to the amount of work that you can do and don't overcommit yourself to things that you cannot do. Sometimes, Mohua, I think just a random act of kindness, a random act of kindness, reaching out to a few elderly colleagues or relatives, speaking to them about their day, calling a team member and telling them how proud you are of the work that they did in the previous week, sharing an inspirational quote or a story with a friend who is recovering from an illness. These are random acts of kindness which can help hugely because then it makes you truly a genuine member of the team and not a person who is just out there to get his or her work done. Of course, we need to get our work done, but we are also human beings, aren't we? I think our colleagues and our, all members in our ecosystem, they have emotions, and I think kindness brings out the best emotions in people, and it also makes you happier as well. So if there is one thing I would ask you to take away from this book of secrets, it would be add kindness to your to-do list every single day, and one act of kindness every day is something that will brighten up your life and the life of your colleagues. topics.
Thank you. I need to congratulate you on the launch of your latest book, Jamsetji Tata Powerful Learnings for Corporate Success. What is this book all about? And what are the key ideas and principles of Jamsetji Tata that all of us can learn from?
Thank you, Mohua, for bringing this book up. This is the book that I mentioned that I've co-authored with Mr. Gopalakrishnan. This is the cover of the book. So this book, Mohua, is not a biography of Jamshedji Tata. Jamshedji Tata was the founder of the Tata Group. He lived
Yes.
more than 130 years ago. Uh, but this book, Mohua, is all about what were the essential ideas of Jamshedji Tata and how have those ideas endured in the Tata Group for more than 150 years now. As we speak this year, the Tata Group is 156 years of age. How many organizations do you know which are more than 150 years of age, thriving and prospering and growing from year to year? This has happened in the Tata Group because the ideas of Jamshedji Tata, the ideas of contributing to the community, the ideas of pioneering, the ideas of persistence and determination, the ideas of building good teams of people, the ideas of using profit with responsibility, these are ideas which have endured in the group for more than 150 years. So we discuss in this book, how have these ideas endured for so long? What's that secret sauce through which these ideas have endured for 6 generations now, and continue to power the growth of the Tata Group? There are beautiful essays. There are very engaging stories, which I can talk about for hours and hours together, through which we bring these ideas to life. So if you're a student of business, if you're a manager, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a leader, this is a book which can actually transform your life. I would call it a one book MBA in leadership wisdom. We have tried to, Mr. Gopalakrishnan and I have both worked in our corporate careers for several decades. Both of us have had long stints with the Tata Group. We have tried to distill our experiences and we have tried to distill our understanding of why these ideas of Jamshedji Tata have lived on for so long. That's the basic purpose of this book, and that's what we have done in this book. It's got some amazing stories, some very thoughtful essays, and I'm sure any of you who decide to pick up Jamshedji Tata will enjoy reading this.
So, Harish, you are a writer of 7 books. What advice would you give to aspiring writers?
Nice question, Mova. I would say, if you aspire, firstly, I would say writing is a very fulfilling thing to do. Writing clarifies your thinking. Writing is a very enjoyable thing to do, because it's an act of creation. And the act of creation is a very, very valuable act in our lives. But the one thing I would give, advice I would give to aspiring writers is, don't wait for creativity to strike you. Don't wait for inspiration to strike you. You can spend your whole life waiting for inspiration to strike you. If you want to write, sit down and write.
Yeah.
One of the things I've done for the last 10 years, 12 years is every Sunday, I will sit down and write and not get up till I've written 1,000 words. And that requires discipline. It's not easy. It's not that I manage to do it every single Sunday, but I manage to do it on most Sundays. And my suggestion is, sit down and write about something which means a lot to you. It could be a story from your life. It could be an experience you have had yesterday or day before yesterday. It could be something that you saw on the streets which means a lot to you. But sit down and write about something which is top of your mind, and write regularly. Doesn't matter whether you write once a month or once a week or once a day, but put some regularity to your writing. When you do that, you will find that your interest and your immersion in writing grows upon you week after week, month after month. So I would say, to me, discipline has been a very, very important aspect of writing. And I think for an aspiring writer, just sitting down and writing a small piece, couple of paragraphs, maybe a post on LinkedIn or a post on Instagram, it could be anything that you write. It could be a blog that you write in Medium, but write. Writing is the first step to writing. That's the tip that I would give to anyone who aspires to write.
Amazing. So, Harish, now I will not let you go without reading a passage from your book, Office Secrets, maybe your favorite part of the book.
Yes, Mova. So I'm going to read out a passage from kindness. And I'm going to say here, you know, the pandemic, of course, has gone away. But I write in this passage, yet buried deep within us is the continuing stress of having lived through a pandemic. From the uncertainty of how long this madness would last, the surreality of trying to get through a normal workday when few things around us were actually normal. The pandemic may now be largely over, but many other similarly stressful situations are likely to come upon us from time to time. And the best antidote to all this stress is kindness. I go on to say that, as David Hamilton highlights in his book, The Five Side Effects of Kindness, kindness makes us happier because it elevates the levels of dopamine in our brains. And I think that when we are happy, we are able to breathe freely, think creatively, and make the most of what is available to us. If kindness is the best stress buster, what can we do to be kind to ourselves and to the people around us every single day? And then I go on to talk about a few things that we can do on kindness. And I conclude this chapter, Mohua, by saying sometimes kindness is at its best when it's unplanned. Be kind to yourself by taking out 5 minutes in the morning or evening to meditate. Or be kind by deciding to drive out with your partner, family, or friends with a packed lunch and a surprise picnic in the beautiful park that you like so much. Reach out to a few elderly colleagues or relatives, speak to them about their day, particularly if you sense that they're experiencing loneliness. Call a team member and tell them how proud you are of the work they did in the previous week. Every random act of kindness is a win-win event. It makes both you and the person on the other side feel good during a difficult time. And then we go back to our work desks with a lot of happiness in our hearts. So I read out that passage, Mohua, because the one idea I want to leave behind with everyone here is that introducing a little bit of kindness in your day-to-day life is perhaps the best thing that you can do, and one of the best office secrets that I have learned in 37 years of my working career now.
Amazing. My God, Harish, this was such an honor for me to have you on my podcast today. And, thank you so much for taking out the time and talking to us about your book and your philosophy in life.
Thank you, Mohua. Thank you for having me on this podcast. And everyone who is listening on this, I look forward to meeting you on the 14th of September at the Bangalore Business Literature Festival at the Catholic Club in Bangalore. So I invite you to attend the Bangalore Business Literature Festival and look forward to meeting you and interacting with you at this celebration of literature. And Mohua, thank you so much for having me on this show. It means a lot to me as an author, and it's been a real pleasure and privilege chatting with you this morning.
Oh, thank you so much, Harish, and wish you lots and lots of success for more books and see you in person on the 14th of September.
Thank you, Mohua, and to you too for your writing and for your podcast. Have fun and wish you great success, continuing success into the future.
Thank you.
Catch the amazing business leaders and authors who will be speaking at the Bangalore BizLit Fest 2024 at the Catholic Club on 14th September. You can register by 10 a.m. to be part of the specially curated Bangalore BizLit Fest 2024.